What's up everyone, Sunny here again, and today we're going to be doing our technical documentation page from freeCodeCamp. This is the example we're given from freeCodeCamp, and this is what we're going to build to make it look in our own unique way. So stick around, get ready to code. Alrighty. Okay, so story 1 says I can see a main element with the corresponding ID of main doc. Oh, so I'm going to change this to a main element and I'm going to give it an ID of main dash doc, and inside it they want several sections. So sections are tagged, so you say section, it says several, minimum of 5. So I'm going to just copy and paste this 5 times. Okay, so the third one says oh, each of them need a class of main section. My bad. So each of them need a class main section. Okay, and you could copy and paste this 5 times. The first element within each main section should be a header. So inside this section, I need a header. Each section element with the class of main section should have a corresponding ID with the text of each header. So a corresponding ID. So inside of header, we need an ID with the name of the content that is supposed to be inside the header. So for example, if we look back at the example, header here is introduction, and if I inspect this, I'm sure I'll see okay, there you go. So inside the so the ID is actually inside the section itself. So instead of putting the ID here, the ID is going to be inside here. So for example, if this header is introduction, the ID for that section will also be introduction. Just like this example right here. Alright, so any space, and it's saying if you have any space in your header, you just replace it with underscore, right? So the main dot section element should have at least 10 paragraphs. Okay, the main should have at least 5. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add all the sections and all the data that is needed for section 3 straight down to section 7. So I'm gonna add all the data required and I'll be right back. Alright, so what I did is I didn't do nothing special. I only added the required data inside the main doc. So let's go through this once again. So story 3 says each main section should be a header. The first element of each main section should be a header which contains text that describe the topic. So here I have introduction and this is all the description. So if we go down to this section, the second section, I have my header, hello world. And we go down to the other one, my header, etc., etc. Here, my header. And it has information that describes everything below. Alright, now we go to story 4. Each section element has, with a class of main section. So each of my sections, remember we created sections. So each of these section tags have a class of main section. You see, when I highlight the first one, it automatically highlights this one because all of them have the same exact class. Okay, so now we're gonna go to the header. The ID should also have a corresponding ID. So, like I was saying, the text inside the header should be the ID of your section. So here I have introduction. My ID for this section is introduction. Here I have hello world. My ID should be hello world. And when there's space, you put underscore to replace it, like it shows right here. So let me go change these real quick. So, and that's it. So all my headers have the same data as the ID for the particular section. Now, story 5. The main section element should have at least 10 paragraphs element in total. So what it's saying is I need 10 p tag. I need 10 different p tags with data inside them. So if we look, I have 1, 2 here, 3 here, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and even more. Because it says at least, so I could have 10 or more. So I have 10 p tags, so make sure you have 10 p tags with data that is a good description of the introduction or whatever header in whatever section you are. So once you finish that, the user story 6, you need at least 5 code elements. So code elements are, let me show you an example. Code elements are this right here, which contains code, not normal text, but code like these, right? So this is, all of this are code elements. So if you inspect this, you realize this is a code element, right? So the way you get this, you get the code element is just by typing code tag and you put the particular code inside of it and you're good to go. So for example, right here, the hello world, the code is a function. So let's make it look more like a function. Function greet me. Okay, so this is a code element right here, and it says you need at least 5 of them, and that's exactly what I did. I have 5 codes, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 right here. So after that, it says I need at least 5 li items. Now your li items are your list items, which is this right here. You realize they have bullet points, right? And how you have sublist and so on. That's all it's asking you to do. So to do that, I'm sure you should probably notice by now. Wait, I don't think I have it. Okay. I think I'm missing something. Oh, I didn't put it. Okay, so I'll be right back. I'll put my LIs inside the document. So the way you do that is by, if you didn't know, is by using UL, stands for unordered list, and then you type LI, which contains the list. So, for example, if I do LI twice, 3 times, and I put data inside them, A, B, C, and we go to our example, and this is what we get. So it basically puts bullet points for you. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and fill out this data, fill out the data for these things, and I'll be right back. Alrighty, so I've put in all my li tags, and it says I need to have at least 5. I have way more than 5, but I have to show you something. So in this example, you realize that I have, this is a main list, and then this is sub list, right? This is like, sub list of the main list, and this is just a second list in itself. So the way you do this is a little bit different. So let's look at the example I'm using now. This is the exact replica of this, right? So when we look at the example we're doing now, we get this. We don't get the sub list, we just get one list, right? So the way you do this to create sub lists out of the bottom values is that you go to the main list. So in this example, you look here, 6 data types that are primitive. This is my main list, right? So I go to the main li, this one right here, and then I go to, and then I do this, right? So inside of the same li, I put in a ul tag, right? So, and then the data that's supposed to be the sub list, all of this, I go here, I copy all of it, I cut, and then I go inside the ul and I paste it. Now that I pasted it, if we look at the example, boom, here we go. We have our sub list. Now, all you're doing is you're just creating a new unordered list inside of the main li, right? And HTML is automatically recognizing that, okay, this is a sub list inside a main list. So that's all it is. Nothing difficult. Alright. So now we could just go to story 8. I can see a nav element with a corresponding ID of nav. So I'm assuming the nav has to be at the top. So the nav represents this, right? This is my navigation. So I'm going to put it up here. I'm going to say nav, and I'm going to give it an ID of navbar. Okay, the navbar element should contain one header element. Okay, one header element. Which contains text that describe the topic. So, as you see in the example, the navigation contains the header of each of my sections. So, introduction is here. Hello world, declaring variables, all of it is right here. So, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to put all my headers in. And I'm going to do this real quick. I'll be right back. Okay, folks, so I realized that I was making a mistake. I was actually reading this wrong. So the navbar element should contain one header. To me, I thought each of these were the header it was talking about. I misspoke. So this is at the header they're talking about. They're not talking about these. These are actually lists. So all I have to do is just type in JS documentation as my header. Okay, and this is what we have so far. And additionally, the nav bar should contain link A elements with class of nav link. So all it's saying is you need an A tag that is your link, right? And inside that A tag you need a class of nav link. So each one of your A tags have a class of nav link. There should be one for every element with the class section. So this, what it's talking about is these links right here. So when you click them, it takes you to that particular link. So each link represents a section in the documentation. So we could go, okay, so once you have that, you could go ahead and wrap your links inside a ULLI. So this is how people usually use their links. So when developers are using links, they always put them inside a UL, and then inside that UL there's an LI. So it's like this. So there's this UL that contains all the links, and then inside it you create a list, and inside the list you have your link, right? So it's just repeated multiple times with the link inside it. It's nothing new, nothing too difficult, right? So now we could just go here, and it says each element with the class of nav link should contain text that corresponds to the header text. So all it's saying is that for example, for the first link, it is linking to the introduction. So the introduction section. So when I click this link, it takes me to the introduction section, right? Just like this particular one. So what I did is I put in hash introduction, right? And this will automatically take you to the introduction section. So if I click on variable scope, it'll take me to variable scope, just like this, because I put in the ID inside the href of that section. So introduction has the ID of introduction, so I say hash introduction. Hello world has the ID of hello world, so I say hash hello world. So yeah, so now what I realized is that I need to write the ID exactly the same. So if we go down, hello world, declaring variable, so okay, it's a capital V, put a capital W. Make sure everything is spelled exactly the same, because this thing is really case sensitive. And what I mean by case sensitive, if you happen to not know, is that when something, so say for example, the class name of anything like car, right? It is different from car, and it is different from this. So when something is case sensitive, these are not the same, even if they're the same word, but to the computer, to the language, it's just different things. So if your class name is car, lowercase letters, put exactly those. Don't put no uppercase at all. If it's like this, you write it exactly the same. Otherwise, you'll run into problems. Alright, cool. So now, I'm sure you understand what is going on here. Now we can just move on to number 14 on regular size. Okay, so basically, right now we're finished with just the HTML page, right? Now we just have to go ahead and style this page. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna link my style sheet. So I'm gonna say link style sheet index.css, right? And then I'm gonna say first I'll do body border box sizing border box. That didn't work. Okay, never mind that. I'll do universal selector. Wait. Oh, never mind. Okay, I'm setting the padding to 0, and I'm setting my margin to 0. So what I'm doing is I'm setting the padding for my entire document to 0, so I could start basically from scratch. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and style our nav. I'm going to go ahead and separate my document real quick. There you go. So I'm going to style my nav to look something like this. So firstly, I'm going to give my navigation a border. So the reason I like to do this is because you really get how big that particular tag is. So I'm going to say 1 pixel solid black, 2 pixels solid red, or something, any color. So I'll remove that as soon as I'm finished, but to really get a grasp of how big this particular thing is, the width and the height, I put the border around it to really get that. So before we continue, one thing that I realized I should have changed was my nav is inside main dot, right? So instead of doing it like that, so I'm gonna put my sections inside of its own div. So I'm gonna say div, I'm gonna give it an ID of sections. And I'm gonna place for every single one of these sections, I'm gonna put them inside their own div. Like this. Now we could proceed. Now I'm gonna go to the nav. Now I'm gonna go to main dot, right? Main dot, this right here. So main dot contains everything inside the document. So I'm gonna go and say main dot hash main dash dot, and then I'm gonna set it to display flex. So what it's doing, it is setting everything inside of main dot both parent tags inside main doc into rows. So let me show you. So you realize that inside main doc, right, the exact child of main doc is nav and div with the ID of section. So these are the immediate children of main doc, right? So when you set it to display flex, the reason it doesn't affect anything else but these two is because they are the exact immediate children, right? So everything else are like, so this section is not affected by the display flex. It only affects the immediate children of the particular parent tag, which is main dot, right? So when we go back and you realize my nav is on the side and this is my sections div that I just created is on the my right. So now I'm going to give my nav a width of 300 pixels for now. And we're gonna leave it at that. Now we're gonna go down to our sections, which is everything on this side. I'm gonna say hash sections, and then I'm gonna give it a border as well so I could really get a grasp of everything. So I'm gonna say blue. Everything in blue represents my sections. So I'm gonna give it a width of 60%, and I'm gonna give this a width of 40%. 40%. So what I've done here is I've set the width of the whole page is 100%, right? Obviously. So I give each a portion. So this has 40, this has 60, which in total is 100. Alright, so now I know you might be wondering that, okay, this navigation is up here, but when we open the page, we realize the navigation is all on one side. So this is exactly what we're going to do. So we're going to go and we're going to style the elements in our nav. So first thing, we're going to say nav, we're going to style our header, and we're going to give it a background color of black and a color of white. Now, let's go back up, and in this universal selector, I'm going to set the font family of the whole document to Arial. You can change it to whatever you want. So, okay, I'm going to give this a bigger font size. 30 pixels for now, and I'm going to give it a font weight of bolder, and I'm going to give it a padding 0. So this padding gives it a 10 pixels for the top and the bottom, and 5 pixels for the left and right. And I'm going to set its text align to center. And we're about done with that. Now we can move on to our ul. I'm going to say nav ul li. Now to remove the underline, we're going to target the A tag, right? Because if you look up here, the A tag is what contains the text. So we're going to remove the underline by targeting our A tag. So I'm going to say text decoration none, color, set it to black, and there you go. Now, so now I'm going to target my li tag now. I'm going to say nav ul li, and I'm going to give them a border dash bottom 1 pixel solid black. Okay, now inside I'm going to go back to my A tag right here, and then I'm going to set my text align to center everything. Okay, so the reason it's not centering, so check this out. If I take this border and I put it here, the reason it's not centering is because inside the A tag, the A tag is too small to have a text align, so you won't even see the difference. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna set the width of our li. Remember, if we go here inside our li, the A, inside our li, there is the A tag, right? So we're gonna target our li tag and open its container. So we can set the width to 100%. Actually, no. Okay, that didn't work. Okay, instead of doing it that way, I think what I should do is set this to display block. Let's see if this works. With 100%. No. Okay, that didn't work. What if I set the text align to center? Oh, never mind then. Okay, so the text align was originally supposed to be inside of the text align is inside of the li tag, right? So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make this a little larger. So I'm gonna target my li now, set my font size to about 20 pixels, right? Okay. Okay. And I'm gonna give it a padding. I'm gonna give my li some padding. So I'm gonna say pad 10 pixels. Yeah, pretty much. Now we're basically done with this. Now let us set a hover effect. So when I hover over it, I get a different color. I get a color. So I'm gonna say nav A, and I'm gonna say hover. Background color, set the background color to black, and I'm gonna set the color to white. No. Okay. Well, that didn't work. Okay. So now if you look at this, this isn't really working out. So the way we fix this is first, let me show you something. Now we can copy the border and we can paste it inside our A tag. Now if you can see, our A tag, the width and the height of our A tag is not the full width of the LI, right? So all this space represents our LI. So this is not the full width. So the problem is that we need to spread the width and the height. So what we're gonna do is you can just go to our A tag and we set the width. Set our width to 100%. Now that still didn't work. So to fix this, you go inside your A tag and then you set this to display block. And our width is at 100%. But our height is still missing something. So the reason this is happening is because remember up here, we set our padding for the LI to 10 pixels. So we could just remove the padding here and add the padding instead to the A tag. So 10 pixels, and we could just remove this border, and here we go. Now we could just hover over it like so. Pretty clean. Alright, so basically we're done with this. Now we could just go ahead over here and style this side. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna open this up like this. Okay. Now we could go to our sections. So one thing you should always remember to do is to put comments in your thing. So this was for the nav section. Now you're gonna go down here. I'm gonna say sections. Well, let's just say sections. Sections wouldn't make no sense. Okay. So now what we're gonna do is you're gonna go to section. Oh no. So let's look down up here. So this is our section tags that contain everything. But inside that sections tag, there's sections like this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna target each section, each of these sections using this class, right? So I could target the header, so I could make the header look like this for each of them. Alright, so let's go right here. Alright. So I'm gonna use the class main section dot main dot section and I'm going to set the header. Oh, but before that, oh no. I'm going to set the header. I'm going to give it a background color. So I'm just going to copy this, the styling for this, and put it here because it's just exactly the same thing. But you know what? Tell you what, instead of actually copying it, I'll just do it one time. So I'll just copy this. Since it has the exact styling with the nav header, I'll just do it like this. So now I just put comma, and since this So the reason I take this out of this is because this is called the nav section. It should only strictly contain things related to the nav, and this has for the nav and the sections. So I put it out so it could just be something separate in itself, right? So we could just remove that, and now this is working. Now the thing I was thinking about is that I should add a padding for this section. So I'm just gonna go here and I'm gonna give it a padding of like 0 pixels top and bottom and 10 pixels left and right, like this. And then here we go. Now the only thing here to do is we have to style our p tags a little bit. So I'm gonna go to say main section dot main section. And I'm gonna say p. So I'm styling all my p tags. I think the everything is pretty good. So only thing I'm gonna do to give the p tags more of a paragraph look, so give them space between each paragraph, I'm gonna give them a padding of 10 pixels top and bottom. No, okay. I'm gonna give it 10 pixels to the top, 10 top right, 10 pixels, 0 pixels to the right, 10 pixels to the bottom, and 0 pixels, well, 10 pixels to the left. Just like that. And there you go. Now we have more of a paragraph look. And also I'm gonna mess with the line height because I feel like the text is just too crowded, too tight. So give it a line height of like 30 pixels. That's a little too much. 20, 24, 23. Yeah, that's a little bit better. And as you notice, it only affected the paragraphs. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna say the same thing for the dot main section li tags. I'm gonna say ul li, and I get the exact same styling. But this is a problem. Actually, what I will do instead, I'm gonna copy this, and then I'm gonna give it a little bit more padding to padding left. Well, no, I'm gonna give it a margin left because as you notice, the bullet points is on the line, which I don't want that. So I'm gonna try to give it a margin left and see if it'll move. And there you go. That's pretty good, ain't it? That's pretty good. Yes. So yeah, that's about it. And I'm going to change the padding left to 0. That's it. Now, the only thing that's left for us to do is to style our code tags. So I'm going to just say dot main section code, and I'm going to give it like a background color of light gray. I'm going to make it a little bit lighter. And I'm going to give it a border radius and a padding. A little too much. 10 pixels. I'm going to give it a margin. So margin top and bottom 10 pixels. And left and right not about 15 pixels. Huh. Apparently this doesn't work. Something's off. Okay, this isn't working. And this, I really have no idea how to fix this, because this only happens for the code tag, and I'm not sure how to fix this, because normally this is not how it would look, right? Normally it would just fix properly, but it just happens, and I have no idea how to fix this. So that's about it. Yeah, that's about it. So now we could go ahead and remove these borders. Okay, now what I'm gonna do is this. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, you notice when I click it, it carries me to the desired place, right? But now I have to scroll all the way back up. So if I click reference, it carries me to reference, but I have to scroll all the way back up to click on something else, which doesn't make any sense. So instead of that, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set my nav to stay here no matter what happens. So I'm gonna set my nav to a position sticky, right? And give it a top of 0. So what is supposed to happen is that when I click this, when I scroll, no matter how much I scroll, my nav will always be on the left side, right? So now all I have to do after this is, let me show you something before I continue. Give this a border again, 1 pixel solid red. Okay, now if you notice, the border is stretching all the way down, so the height is 100% of the whole page. So what we should do about that is just set the height to fit the content. And now when we scroll, boom, it stays to one place. And if I click reference, it's always there. I could find it and click data type, and click this and click that, and there we are. So we could go ahead and remove this. And boom. Now the only thing left to do is to set our, so if you notice, when the screen gets to a particular size, the nav moves to the top. So let's see, at around 815, the nav gets to the top of the document. So the way we're gonna do that is we're gonna use media queries. And if you notice in story 4, no, story 15, it says you need to use at least one media query. So this is why you're gonna use. So we're gonna use one media query at the bottom. And we're gonna set our we're gonna say media, and we're gonna do this, and we're gonna say max width (815 pixels), and we're gonna do curly braces. Now inside here, we're gonna target on nav. We're gonna target our main dot, right? We're gonna copy this main dot, go down to our query, and then at max width of 815, the nav should move to the top. So what we're gonna, the reason we target main dot is because it contains both things. Now to fix this is we're gonna set the flex direction to column, and there we go. When we set our flex direction to column, it moves the navigation to the top and pushes this at the bottom. Now the problem is that it's not 100% of the width. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna also mess with the nav. We're gonna say nav, and we're gonna set the width to 100%, and there we go. And we're gonna do the exact same thing for this bottom piece, which is called sections. We're gonna say hash sections, and we're gonna set our, well, we don't have to do it twice, but comma sections, and there we go. And we're about done. And that's it. So now even if I click this, whoa, oh, okay, so we need to remove the styling from the nav as well. So remember, we set, so that the nav can stick to the side no matter what, right? We set our nav to position sticky, right? We set our nav to position sticky, so it's gonna stick right here. But because at this particular space, at this particular screen size, we don't want this to be, we want this to stay at the top. Even when we scroll, we don't want it to stick. That's annoying. Look at this. This looks annoying, right? We don't want this to stick to the top. What we want is for it to stay to the top. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna set this to position static. Now position static represents the normal document flow. So this is how it would usually be if you didn't style it at all. This is what it would usually be like. This is the default, right? So you set it to position static, and we can just scroll however we want. Boom, there we are. Boom, here we are. So that's about it. Yeah, that's about it. We're about done. And if we open this, boom, and there we are. Now all we have to do is go and test this. So I'm not using Google Chrome, the place to test it. So I'm going to go on Google Chrome, and I'll be right back. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and test this thing now that I have Google Chrome open. So all we gotta do is go to our HTML, we copy it and paste it to the bottom of this, and then we get our CSS and paste it here, and we select technical documentation, and then we run the test, And we have 15 out of 16. I wonder why. On regular size, elements should be shown on the left half. It should always be visible to the user and should remain stationary. You may need to enlarge the viewport or zoom out to ensure the nav bar doesn't scroll. What? I mean, I don't get this. Honestly, I don't understand this type of problem because it says on the regular size, it should be on the left half. It is on the left half. Let's take a look. No, this is what we just built. It is on the left half. I think, let me see something. I think the problem might just be that we didn't give the nav a fixed width. So let's give the nav a fixed, the only width we give it a percentage width. So let's see what happens if I change the width to something else. Let's say 300 pixels. So there's this big gap, say 100%. Let's see. So let's go to our nav. We went to our nav and we changed this to 300. I'll change it to 400. I think that's pretty good. Let's test it. So there you go. So the problem was that I had to set the width of the nav to a fixed number, not a percentage. So I set the width to 400 pixels, and then I went down to the sections. Remember, the sections was 60 pixels, so that's when I set it to 60 pixels, there's this big gap right here, so I set it to 100% to fill that gap, right? So that's why I set the sections to 100%. Alright, so, you know, we did good. So, alright, so thanks for watching, folks. Hope you enjoyed this, hope you learned something. I really do. So if you did, please like, subscribe, leave a comment if you didn't understand anything. Peace out.
Perfect.